ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Sexy, confident, so intelligent.
Yeah.
She is heaven sent.
Bang. 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 Bang on. Hello.
Welcome back, Zan, from London.
Hello, governor.
Hello.
I said that once when I landed and never again.
No, you do start to put on an East End accent when you're there. In it, yeah. But then it fades pretty quickly. Although I do remember when I lived there, I remember coming back on the plane and like you'd be flying Qantas or something. And I remember thinking, gosh, the Australian accent is strong, isn't it?
It is strong, but you know what? They've started putting on, as a cost-cutting measure, a UK crew on the flight back.
Oh, really?
Because they could pay them less.
Yeah,
so you don't,
true.
because I remember that when you were growing up and you first flew overseas and you'd have that feeling of like, it would be like culture shock back in, the first thing going exactly through the doors and going, oh, I'm coming back home.
Yeah, and
but
you
also
have someone going, send the aisle seats around there. And you're like, oh, fuck, that's right, I live in Australia.
But there's something nice about that too, isn't there? There's something comforting.
I loved it, yeah.
Weirdly, I had the other thing when I landed in London, like I was there for this reason why we didn't do Bang On last week was because I was in London for a hot minute, and I really mean that. It was like 4 days. And I landed on the Sunday. I met up with our good friend Tom Ballard for a Sunday roast, and I was at this lovely pub, and I went to the loo, and I just squeezed past someone, and I just lightly brushed her, and the woman just turned around. She's like, "Oh, sorry, darling, you're right." I was like, I love London. Everyone was so nice. I mean, it's summer in London. Everyone's in a good mood.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'll
sorry, darling.
I'll see you there in February when everyone just hates life. And it's dark at 4 o'clock.
Oh, my God. I couldn't handle it.
And it's so cold.
Whenever you go there, you're like, this is amazing. What a city. And then it's like, come winter, when the sun goes down at 3:30, no friggin' way. No way.
I liked it, though. It was a big change, in terms of Australia is just so good in terms of weather. Even if you're in down south, it's still good. And so I kind of like the fact that you were stuck inside trying to get warm.
How long were you actually in London for when it all came up at the end? How long did you stay there for?
About 2 years.
Yeah, it's decent time.
It was.
A few seasons.
Loved it. I haven't been back much since because, COVID happened and life happened and all of those things. And I feel like it happened to another person.
Yeah, another life.
Another life. I loved that life, though. I was heartbroken leaving London. I think that's the biggest heartbreak I've ever had, leaving a city. Isn't that sad?
People feel that though, don't they? When they come back, it's like everything feels a lot sort of more low key because just the sheer volume of people and life going on there, like the population and everything happening. It's just it's so different to any Australian city or town.
Yeah, and look, everywhere you turned, there was something new around the corner, regardless of if you'd been there before, and I kind of loved that. But you were there. What did you get up to?
Well, I was there for work and I recorded an amazing episode of Take 5, which I was relieved about because it's like a long way to travel if it's going to be a shit interview. I actually just watched the edit of it this morning. I laughed. I cried. It's incredible. I can't wait for everyone to see it. But because I was there for like 3 or 4 days, I was like, I'm going to try and squeeze in as much as I can around the edges because, life is for living and I'm on the other side of the world. Let's go. So literally hours after landing, I went to the ABBA Voyage AI weird concert that has been playing in London. It was weird for the first 10 minutes. And also I'd just gotten off a 24-hour flight.
True, you're already feeling a bit weird. Everyone says it's amazing, but I love that you've gone, no, it's a bit weird because they showed the holograms at Eurovision. Well, it was sort of a hologram, but it wasn't even really. It was that I found was really weird. I was like, oh, this doesn't look good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's when you see them on stage because you're right, it's not a hologram. It's like really good AI and CGI on a screen, but the way they've lit it makes it look 3D. And the lighting, that's the thing, the lighting and the setup in the room is incredible. It's just the tech is insane. It sounds like a concert. There's like 300 speakers around. It's loud. It's proper live recordings of them singing. And there's a live band too.
Oh, wow.
Which makes a massive difference. And there's a real energy in the room. And thankfully, at the end of the show, the band got a louder clap and cheer than the robots. So that made me happy.
That's good.
I felt relieved.
That's good.
It's like we're not...
AI hasn't taken over yet.
Yeah, but the weirdness came when, you had it was like a normal concert where it's like you've got this video screen of these 4 people that are quote-unquote life-size on screen, but then you've also got these video screens all around the rest of the 3,000 capacity space, and they're close-ups of of ABBA's faces, and this is CGI ABBA, and that was like, okay, they're not real, obviously, and so the close-ups were a bit weird. But I loved it, and it was just so nice having everyone sing along and have a good time, and a few times I turned to my mate who had just been on that flight with me, and I said, are we still on the flight? Like, am I dreaming right now? Is this real life?
Amazing. It's amazing.
But it was great. And
once you suspend your disbelief, it works?
Totally. And I think also once you go, they do a smart thing where they've recorded all new banter. They acknowledge that it's, not them, obviously. They're not pretending that it's real. But they also reminded me that they hadn't played in London since, I think, 1979. And you kind of go, that's right. Like, ABBA are huge in the history of pop music. Their music is still so resonant and used and loved in so many ways. But they were kind of like the Beatles. They had a really short life together. It was just a few incredible years, and then it was done. So if you want to see ABBA live, then you have to watch them in this form, But there's rumours that it's going to come to Melbourne, Myf. People are talking about that thing being built at Flemington Racecourse, which I'd go and see it again. It was wild.
Totally. That's exciting because it has to have a purpose-built venue. There's nothing that exists that can accommodate the technology that's required. But speaking of ABBA, ABC TV, this is a little mini bang, have got a fantastic documentary that I watched. It was on a couple of months ago, I think, Against the Odds. And it is an historical doco, obviously. I don't think it's a new one, but it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating, about the relationships within the band and how that all panned out and why things got weird. It's really, really good.
Oh, a little side bang. Okay, I'll chuck that in the show notes. Good to know. I will definitely watch that. I also just now want to see Bjorn Again, the Australian ABBA tribute show that's been running for probably as long as ABBA have not been performing for the last 40 years.
Yes.
They still sell out shows.
They do. And there's a reason. They're incredible songs and they're incredibly crafted songs, and they touch you in ways that I think is so unexpected, because when you actually look at the songs, they're the most mournful, sometimes terribly sad songs that you'll ever hear, but there's something really creative about the way they're put together that plays on that, but then also sort of tricks you.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster. ABBA's a roller coaster. And absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, just the masters of Swedish pop songwriting, right? Just the stuff that they literally teach in schools in Sweden. So that was really fun. I went and saw that Naomi Campbell exhibition, which I don't know if we talked about on Bang On, but
I don't think we have.
The first time that a supermodel has ever been the subject of an exhibition, and fashion exhibitions do really well. There's heaps of them that run in Australian museums, particularly like the NGV does a lot of them, like Alexander McQueen, the Dior exhibition, all that sort of stuff. Same in London. But this is the first time they've ever done one based around a supermodel. And I was really into this because we obviously spoke about the supermodel show on Apple TV recently, and just the iconic nature of Naomi and her story, and the fact that this was the first time they've chosen Naomi to be the first person that they, hinge a whole exhibition on. And basically it was just her wardrobe on show. And I was into that.
That's really good. I wondered, though, did they have the boiler suit of her the hazmat suit when she was sitting in business class on the plane? No way!
They did. It was right next to, and it was covered, I think, with a Louis Vuitton throne. It was friggin' amazing. They had the hazmat suit. They had everything. It was a playful exhibition. It was really good. They had the Vivienne Westwood shoes that she stumbled and fell in on the catwalk. They had the amazing armadillo shoes, which I think McQueen designed all those years ago.
Did they have the telephone that she threw at somebody?
No, but they did acknowledge that. They had a few little bits and pieces, and it was a story of Naomi, all the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it was really fascinating.
That's brilliant, and it was at the V&A Museum, which is one of the greatest museums in the world.
Yeah, seriously. I think it's on actually for the next year too. So if you are going to be in London, or you're Bang fam in London, I know we have a lot of expats and also Londoners who listen to Bang On, then do go and see it. It just opened and it's really worth seeing. And there's also an amazing exhibition with Elton John and David Furnish's personal photography collection at the V&A too, which I think loved even more. Phenomenal. Like you can imagine. They are cashed up.
Oh, yeah.
And they have got an incredible collection of photography. And they put it all on show. You know what I thought, though, when I saw that? Because did you hear recently about how Elton has had an auction of his stuff? I know this sounds dark, but I was sort of thinking, is he getting his affairs in order? Because he hasn't been well for the last few years. He's auctioning things off. I feel like he's the kind of person who, you know, when the time comes and he, you know, passes on from this world, he'll donate so much art to public institutions. I feel that.
I think so. And you know, a lot of people are of the mindset that you can't take it with you when you die. And so unless you're sharing it before then, what is the point? Someone else has got to go through it, and that's unfair.
Totally. It was beautiful to share. Like, I just thought, how incredible to open up your collection and just the most amazing photography. So, yeah, if you're going to be in London anytime over the next year or so, there's so many people that I know who I follow on Instagram who are having their hot Euro summers. If you're going to be in London, then go along to the V&A and see these exhibitions. They're so good. Love
it. But how's the jet lag? Are you okay?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've become a night person for the moment because I'm such an early bird. Usually I wake up at like 5:36 in the morning, but now I'm staying up until 1 in the morning. And
just text me. I'm up.
At about 7 p.m. each night, I'm like, all right, what are we doing today?
Yeah.
Let's go. I'm kind of riding it. I'm riding that night wave before I go back into my early bird status. But yeah, it's a funny time. Speaking of art and culture and everything in between.
Look into my eyes and it's easy to see. 1 and 1 make 2, 2 and 1 make 3. It was destiny.
Weird times this week with Tenacious D. I'm sure that everyone's heard the story right now, but they had to cancel. Well, they chose to cancel their tour after some comments that Kyle Gass said on stage when Jack Black asked him what his birthday wish was. He said that you didn't miss, relating to the Trump shooting or something along those lines. And the backlash was worldwide, really quite full on. And then they postponed and cancelled their tour. What a volatile state of affairs we're living right now, Myf. It's like strange sort of times, isn't it?
Strange times. I mean, look, I think people can think what they think, but saying stuff like that out loud is not the answer. I think we can both acknowledge that. However, it's such a huge reaction, isn't it? Normally, I think an apology would have sufficed, I guess, and in this case, no. I'd say it's got a lot more to do with perhaps the relationship between those two. Maybe it was fractured already, or it's to do with insurance because they cancelled their world tour, not just Australia. They cancelled their world tour. So I figure in the current environment, they are if saying things like that is going to create a reaction and therefore they're uninsurable, I would suggest.
And also Jack Black's got his massive, very broad Hollywood movie career, so he doesn't want to antagonise or isolate his audience. You know, his payday. He does this Tenacious D thing on the side. It's something that he did before he was an actor, and then of course that career took off. And you get the feeling that he doesn't need to do this tour. Kyle Gass probably gets more out of it than Jack does. But then he's put in a position where, you know, whatever he said, but there's going to be a lot of people who get very angry about that and will boycott him, and he's got to think about all of that. But, oh, God, it's just so... Everything's just so reactive at the moment. It feels like a very strange time. It has for a long time, but it's just everything is very volatile in the world.
Yeah. Unprecedented. Remember when we used that word all the time?
No, we don't. We use permacrisis. Just launching from one crisis to another. No longer unprecedented, just permacrisis.
No, it's just everything is awful, I think we can say.
You know what this lends perfectly to, though? The fact that we just lean on nostalgia, the things that we love, the things that we know. And not only is it remakes, like last night I went and saw the Twister remake, which is kind of a direct rip of the original, and loved it last night when I was having one of my late night sessions. But you told me that there's going to be a Devil Wears Prada sequel, like decades after the original?
Well, rumours are abounding this week, and that usually means it's a yes. Apparently, at least 2 of the favourites are set to return to the sequel. I would imagine that would include our main gal, Meryl Streep, but Anne Hathaway, not necessarily rumoured to be a part of this, and no official word on anything really, but from what I can gather and from what the articles are saying, it's going to be set in the current day, and it will be set in a time when magazines are basically adapting to the online digital world, which we all know just upended everything a couple of years back, or probably 10 years back now, but still continuing to upend everything in the magazine business. So I think that's a really interesting storyline for a film that was so beloved. I think that this new storyline will actually, take the focus off the relationship between the two women, if it is indeed about the two women and their sort of argy-bargy, and move it into another realm. I like the idea of this.
Yeah, 100%. They kind of sowed the seeds too. I mean, I think it was probably for an anniversary, but wasn't there an awards ceremony recently where Meryl Streep was joined by Anne Hathaway and Emily Blunt, and kind of recreating some of those tensions between the three of them and having a bit of fun? Maybe they were sowing the seeds for the sequel.
They were, perhaps. They were at the SAG Awards earlier this year, so that happened. I think it'll go ahead. There's a huge audience for it, although back in the day I think it cost like $20 million to make and it made $150 million or something, and these days I would imagine it might not have the same power, but you never know. Like you said, nostalgia is a huge thing at the moment, so it'll probably be huge.
I loved the original movie because obviously it was a great story, and Meryl Streep was amazing in it, and of course it lends, to the idea of this is kind of loosely based on the Anna Wintour kind of character. But, people were sharing this week that amazing clip of the cerulean jumper where Anne Hathaway is poo-pooing fashion, and then basically Miranda Priestley goes through all the reasons that from the top to the bottom fashion has trickled down, and all these decisions that have been made in high fashion lend to exactly what we're wearing every day and the importance of fashion. And we talk about the importance of fashion as wearable art, as something that makes a statement on culture almost every week on Bang On. And I loved how people did that, or the movie makers and the producers and the writers did that on a grand Hollywood scale, because I think it's still valid. So, yeah, I'm like you. I'm curious about this new idea of the Devil Wears Prada sequel, and I will watch it. I absolutely will.
I'll be there first to see it.
There are no new ideas.
No, and that's fine at the moment, to be honest.
You're bringing another rumour to me this week as well from this legend.
'Cause I'm your lady.
Oh, Celine. I love it. You're rumour mill Myf Warhurst this week.
I know. None of these things are confirmed, so, take it with a grain of salt, to be honest.
There is no ABC fact check on Bang On this week.
I've got no facts. All I've got is just some shitty articles that suggest that there's a budget in the Paris Olympics opening ceremony that is in the millions. There's a couple of millions put aside for two huge celebrities to perform.
No.
What?
Pitbull.
Oh, my people. And one of those celebrities is rumoured because she did say in the documentary that we watched, I Am, for one of our Bang On Lives, she did say that she wants to see the Eiffel Tower again. Because she's been basically stuck in her house and she's experiencing huge health problems with stiff person syndrome, which is a horrible thing that she's going through, and she shares with us in the documentary. But I think it's going to happen. She's French-Canadian, therefore French. They'll take her. And she's going to sing at the opening ceremony.
Wow.
I don't know. I've got my fingers crossed.
Look, you are a soothsayer. You've called things before, well before anyone else. I am saying +1 to this rumour mill. And we won't have long to wait either, because isn't the Olympics kicking off at the end of next week?
No, that's sport. I don't know.
But the opening ceremony, so Celine, next weekend.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not that invested.
Now, we did watch Celine Dion I Am and talked about it at our Thirul Bang On Live, which was amazing. Actually did that just the night before I flew out to London. Thank you to everyone who came. That was such a fun show. We actually, sadly, we record every one of the shows, and we've been putting all of the little extra bits and pieces and the highlights from the shows as bonus bangs in your feed. But the recording for that one got corrupted, which is a real shame. Do you reckon do you want to do a bonus bang in the next few weeks and just talk about Celine Dion I Am? Because I feel like I loved this film, and there's so much to unpack for anybody who grew up, Gen X like us and elder millennials with Celine and her music. Should we do a special episode in the next few weeks?
I think so.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone who came, and for anybody who wasn't, if you want to hear it, let's do that in the next few weeks, because it is so stunning. So yeah, that'll come later on. Oh, speaking of pop juggernauts, Have you heard the return single from Katy Perry? There's a lot going on, Myf, in the song and the video.
You're playing the best bit of the song, though.
It's
the chorus
hook.
is good.
Yeah.
It's catchy. The lyrics at the start of the song, not so good. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's like women's empowerment, but done in a very, very saccharine way. Should we get the lyrics up? I should get those up before we... Katy Perry. Woman's World lyrics, because I can sort of hum it, but it's a dirge. Sexy, confident, so intelligent.
Yeah.
She is heaven sent, so soft, so strong. It's fucking awful, and it sounds like recycled Lady Gaga from fair few years ago. The chorus is a banger, though. Once it kicks in, it's fine. So I feel like the song itself is a bit confused, and it's been received like that by the world. It's been a rough week to be Katy, I've got to say.
And she's had such a massive lead up to this because she had the lyrics of this printed out on a big kind of cape that she wore to one of the fashion weeks a few weeks ago. She's been putting herself in all the right places. She knows how to stir up attention and to be the PR machine. But now that it's come out and people have heard it and seen the video, and specifically realised that her collaborator on this is Dr. Luke, the whole commentary around this being a feminist anthem is muddied by the fact that she's working with someone who's had severe allegations which have been dismissed by a court, which he has denied, but still that kind of choice to work with a producer where it is so compromised because of these conversations that have happened over the last few years. Just it sucks the focus of the song completely away when she's making a feminist anthem with an alleged abuser, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It muddies the water, and also I think with the clip added to it, she's suggested that it's satire, but she had to put out a video of her saying to her dancers that it was in fact satire, but people aren't really getting that. And if it is satire, people have to actually get what you're trying to say. And I was watching the clip, and I'm genuinely not sure what she's trying to say. I think it is something around the cell of female empowerment and girl bossing, and yet somehow it is about the male gaze, but wanting to be in the male gaze, or at least that's what she said in that little clip about it being satire. And I'm just really confused.
It's just not very clever. Like, it's really obvious references, but feel very dated. You know, her dressing up as Rosie the Riveter, stars and stripe bikini, and she's always had that kind of excessive pop camp about her. But you know, dousing herself in whiskey for women and all this kind of stuff, and then that kind of anvil that just crashes her, sort of suggesting, oh, we're getting rid of all of this. But then we're straight back and she's in a semi-trailer with like bedazzled ornaments shaped like a uterus, and there's that
dildos and things.
Oh, the scene where they're just pointing the vibrators in some sort of synchronized swimming nightmare. Like, what the fuck is happening?
I don't know. And I really feel sorry for her, actually, because I think she thought she had a thing. And there are rumours that this was actually going to be the song in the opening titles of Barbie. And people have put this together online, and it kind of works in terms of timing. There is a possibility. But I think Barbie the producers behind Barbie said, nah, it's not going to work. It feels confused, obviously, the way we're feeling about it. And then she's put it into the new album, and I just don't really... I do feel sorry for her. I think she's trying. I think she's trying to adapt and evolve and do all of those things that a pop artist needs to do.
I don't think she is evolving, though, because it feels very...
That's the problem. It feels like she's not.
Yeah.
Or she doesn't know that she hasn't.
I think it's just the complexity of what we've seen from pop artists who are coming up now. And I mean, I say coming up, but someone like Charlie XCX, who we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, who has been in the scene, in the underground for more than a decade now, but he's just sort of hitting the mainstream. But the way that she and Lorde tackled female relationships and kind of explored that in pop music is worlds away. And I'm not comparing, but it's just the complexity of the way that Chappell Roan and even, you know, Sabrina Carpenter and all of these artists that are hitting the charts and topping the charts now exploring femininity just feels a lot more on point and a lot more clever and a lot more relatable than Katy Perry, which still feels like it's kind of stuck in the 2010s. It feels dated, it feels left behind, and it feels very, very confusing. One of my favourite comments on the YouTube was, this video looks like it's a feminist video directed by Michael Bay. Oh, it made me laugh.
Oh,
so good.
that's actually perfect.
Yeah, so perfect.
If someone can tell me what the fuck is going on in it, that'd be great. Because we're supposed to review it, and I was like, oh, I got nothing here. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what she's trying to say to me.
It is worth watching just to be confused and just to be part of the conversation. If you haven't watched it yet, I will put it in the show notes. Speaking of things that, left me a little bit confused as well.
Don't you forget about me. Don't.
Speaking of the past as well, we talked a little bit about this when it first came out. We fucked it because we thought it was opening everywhere on Disney+. It's finally out as of about a week or so ago. BRATS, the documentary made by Andrew McCarthy, one of the Brat Pack coming-of-age crew that were in so many movies. A lot of them directed by John Hughes. We're talking about Molly Ringwald. We're talking Emilio Estevez, Judd Apatow, Ali Sheedy.
Not Judd Apatow.
Sorry, Judd Nelson. Let's say Judd Apatow. He makes different coming-of-age movies.
Oh, God,
He makes middle-aged coming-of-age movies. Yeah. Judd Nelson. The crew that basically we grew up with, if you are like us and you're Gen X or elder millennial and you kind of watch these coming-of-age movies through the 80s, and this doco Brats, which we were very excited about when we saw the trailer for it a few weeks ago, hey?
Because it does actually deal with a lot of the movies that we watched, and they gave us ways to think about how we could live as a teenager in our own towns or cities. There wasn't the internet when we were growing up, and we didn't really see a lot of teen culture other than through music clips, really. And these movies became very important, well, to my generation for sure, because we could sort of imagine ourselves perhaps and who we were or who we thought we could be. Like, you try on different identities when you're young, and in order to see where you might fall or fit. And these movies provided an opportunity for us to look and see and try and do all those things and imagine. So they were very important. And so I was really looking forward to this, just given it's nice to see how groups evolve, how they've become creative adults. I guess just from a selfish perspective, it's always nice to see. And I realised this was about the article that was written by David Blum that was for the New Yorker magazine back in 1985, and he coined the term Brat Pack, which is a play on the Rat Pack, which was the 60s group of singers, and it was very legendary. And he called them the Brat Pack because they were young 20-somethings going around living their best lives, drinking, partying, having a good time, being a bit arrogant, all the things 22-year-olds should be doing. And yet Andrew McCarthy took great offence to it. And I actually looked at the article and I read it. Did you read it?
No, I haven't read it. I didn't check the source material. I should have.
Right. Okay, here we go. The article has one line about Andrew McCarthy, just one. And he's not even included in the original grouping of the Brat Pack in the article. This is the weird thing. And the one line was said by Judd Nelson, and this is the line. He said, and of Andrew McCarthy, one of the New York-based actors in St. Elmo's Fire, a co-star says, he plays all his roles with too much of the same intensity. I don't think he'll make it. The Brat Pack has saved their praise for themselves. And I think it was Judd Nelson, but not entirely sure. It could have been Emilio Estevez. I don't know. But this is just one line in the entire article. And Andrew McCarthy has carried this because he thought that it didn't give him a sense that he wanted to project to the world that he was a serious actor. And that he has carried this for his entire adult life.
Well, you feel like you're watching a therapy session, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. But I'm like, God, imagine if he grew up in social media. He wouldn't have survived a day.
Yes. The awkwardness starts from the get-go too, because the first person he visits and he's basically trying to get in contact with all the other members of the Brat Pack and speak to them about their memories of this article and the experience of being in this heady world of being, the it kids of the time. And the first person he visits is Emilio Estevez. And can I just say, side bang, my favourite part about this documentary was seeing everyone's houses.
Oh, I'm into it. That's the thing with the Celine Dion doco that we should talk about when we do it. Just you get to see a different level of elite and bonkers.
Yes.
It's adorable.
So he's in Emilio Estevez's house, and I found these, I'm kind of glad that they put it first because it ripped the Band-Aid off. I found it so incredibly awkward to watch because Emilio has clearly put out the hand of peace and said, yep, of course I'll talk to you about this, because you can tell that it's something that's playing on Andrew McCarthy's mind, but it's something that Emilio has not given a minute of his life thinking about.
No.
And also, Andrew is going to him to talk to him about how he feels, and he barely lets Emilio Estevez get a word in. And he's just talking at him, and it's just this sort of vomit of all the shit that he's been carrying for decades. And obviously there's a bit of stuff going on, which when you watch the documentary you'll see between the two of them, that maybe Emilio felt he also had to speak to Andrew because he wanted to clear the air about a couple of things and move forward. But it's really hard to watch. Ali Sheedy felt a lot more generous. Although he didn't mic them properly. So it's like,
I know. The final line in the film is her with the terrible mic sound.
Yeah.
And I think because he thought what he said was so important that bit had to go in. I mean, look, I get it. He's one of the directors of this as well. He's trying to establish himself as a more serious person because he feels like the world never saw him as a serious person because he was in the Brat Pack. But the fact that he's carried this for so long is just... It's sad. It's a bit sad. And most of his co-stars kind of get to that point, especially Demi Moore.
Oh, she's amazing.
Who is amazing in her house. I'm sorry, next level, but that was the best bit. She's really, just wonderful about it. I felt like Ali Sheedy, because Ali Sheedy said she was grateful for it all. She didn't like it, but she was grateful for it. And I think the fact... I felt like she was kind of appeasing Andrew a little bit in that moment. That was my take on it. But Demi sort of said it straight up front. She basically said to him, why do we take it as something that was bad? Because it wasn't bad for her. She has gone on to do incredible things.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I felt like this whole documentary was a real missed opportunity. I really wanted to hear from them all about that experience and what they thought of the time and how it affected them in an ongoing way, and the positives of it, the negatives, of course. But in actual fact, it just felt driven by somebody who wanted to hit home a point that everybody around him was saying, no, that's not how it was.
Oh, and you saw that, didn't you? Because they would give these great responses, and then he'd sort of, I think there's one point where he's leaving, I forget who it's with, but he's leaving the house, and then he's like, but really, what? It's like, oh, you haven't listened to anything here. You're nothing. You're not learning anything from this experience, which is like, what's the point? And as an outsider, it's an awkward watch. I thought that the things that not only does he talk to all the different stars of the Brat Pack, these old mates, many of whom he hasn't spoken to in decades, since the 80s, but he also speaks to a few different television critics and stuff like that. Bret Easton Ellis pops up. That's clearly like, he's in my Rolodex, let's fucking go. Malcolm Gladwell.
He's free.
Random.
Yeah.
It's seriously like, who can I call to be part of this documentary who'll look good in the trailer? Why is Bret Easton Ellis in it? Anyway, I guess he was big in the 80s too. But the thing that I thought was, I quite enjoyed, and I was thinking about you watching this, was just that understanding of how huge this time was, of that monoculture that existed in a good way, in a positive way, that we watched these films over and over and over again, and we connected with them deeply, not just because it was one of the first times that we felt ourselves seen, but also because there just wasn't this huge, massive, endless well of content that was pulling our attention in every direction, not just in film and television, but in short form video, in YouTube, in TikTok and all that kind of stuff. And it's so fractured now, but this was just, there was that kind of water cooler, for lack of a better word, moment where everyone was watching The Breakfast Club, everyone was watching San Elmo's Fire, and we all had a connection to it, and we all saw ourselves in it. And that happens less and less these days. So I sort of enjoyed living in that world. But you could tell who had had therapy and who hadn't. Rob Lowe, a friggin' ray of light. just feeling grateful, and I would too if I lived in the house that he lives in as well.
Backed onto the sea. Did you see that? Like the interior was all a bit blonde wood for me, but look, then I was like, "Oh, this looks a bit ordinary." So it was a bit sort of American Scandi. You know how they get it a bit wrong. No offense, US listeners. But then you look out the window and like, oh, I get it now. Okay, right, this is the beach house.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of
the beach houses.
One of many houses. There's an amazing line from Emilio Estevez where he says, and I think this comes in at the end of the film, where he just sort of reminds Andrew, we have no control over it. Like that moment has passed, the toothpaste is out of the tube. Which I was like, that's such a great analogy. Like, there's no way you're stuffing that toothpaste back in there.
Nah.
But it's like there's a type of person who hangs on to the past, and this is to do with anxiety and regret and all of those things where you're either living of the fear of the future or the regret of the past. And there's the kind of person who can live in the moment and go, cool, I can't do anything about what happened. That is what it is. And here I am today for all of those reasons, better or worse. And there's a gratitude for it. And you saw those two different kind of personality types throughout this film, didn't you?
Yeah. And I think Andrew, he did have a few moments where he was like, oh, actually, it was quite good and fun. And maybe I should enjoy that. And that was great. I want to see the next documentary of that, when he talks to them about what they learnt from that time and what it was like to be a celebrity in that time, and how extraordinary it must have been, and how difficult it must have been at that age, because you're not fully formed at that point. No one is in their early 20s in terms of their brain development. They're still being, they're still developing, and it would be a huge thing. And I'd love to see that documentary. It's interesting and very telling, the ones who didn't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Judd Nelson, there's a moment at the end where he's been trying to contact Judd Nelson the whole time, and then there's this fake set-up scene where he takes a call from Judd at the end of the documentary.
So weird, because he's obviously not talking to you. Yeah, why would you put that in?
He never called. He never called. And the final line that he said, and I think this is one of the most telling is too, saying something along the lines of, oh, it was 30 years ago, no one cares. And then he said, and if you do still care, and then it stops. He doesn't actually say anything. He's like having a revelation. It's like, yeah, guy, just stop caring about this bit and enjoy the other bit. You're part of something. That's important.
Yeah.
People remember your name. Not that that's important, but you helped people along the way. That's important. Why aren't we having a documentary about that?
How do you feel about because we talked about this when the trailer first came out, that we both had kind of crushes on Andrew McCarthy. How do you feel after watching this film?
Well, it's interesting. He is the epitome of what happened to all those men and boys that we hung out with, that were difficult, that were troubled, that were complicated, a bit angry, a bit sad, a bit negative, You see them now in our age groups. We've all got folk like that started out like that, and it's a difficult life for them. Mm. It's a really difficult life, and that was held up as somehow interesting. Dark was interesting.
Yeah.
And I think as you age, it becomes more and more difficult to deal with unless you do the work to sort your shit out.
Yeah, and the most difficult for the person who's experiencing it.
Yes.
I don't know if I'd recommend this at about the 1 hour mark. I was like, oh, God, I'm done. And I think a few people have said the same. I've had a couple of messages come into the bang box. Catherine actually messaged, thank goodness for Rob Lowe. His pure sunlight compared to Andrew McCarthy's dark bitterness at one article written eons ago. Maybe it was McCarthy being typecast as a floppy-haired preppy boy that saw his career not proceed in the way that he thought it should. I don't usually write about stuff like this, but it was so self-indulgent. I'm getting my head around it. # Team Ducky forever.
Who said he wasn't a part of the Brat Pack. He said, I never was. I wasn't friends with any of them.
He didn't give a shit.
No.
He's like, I'm happy to be in your doco, but I've got other things going on.
Yeah.
I Googled what Andrew McCarthy's doing now because I was curious. He's been working as a director in lots of film. He actually directed a few episodes of Orange is the New Black, which I found fascinating.
Oh, wow.
And he does bit roles here and there, but he mainly works as a director sort of behind the camera these days. So he has continued to have a career in Hollywood, but in a different way, I guess, to some of his castmates. But there you go. If you want to watch it, it's on Disney+. If you don't, we've watched it for you. That's what we're here for. That's right. What we're here for. Speaking of also that sort of period, I guess a little bit later, but definitely the stuff that we grew up with, I just wanted to acknowledge the very sad and shocking passing of Shannen Doherty, who died. We got the news at the start of this week at the age of 53. She'd been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer quite a while ago. I believe it metastasized to her brain and she'd been quite unwell. And the news came through that she had died over the weekend.
Yeah.
It was very shocking, very sad news, wasn't it, Myf? Like, it just, like, Brenda was,
she's like our older sister.
Seriously.
It was Brenda in 90210, or it may have been for you the character she played in Charmed. I never really watched that, to be honest.
No, either did I. But I think was it Prue
it was the
in
90s.
Charmed? Yeah.
I was out. I didn't watch a lot of telly in the 90s. She was always that kind of older sister for me, older, cooler sister, because she was a bit of a rebel, and she did naughty things, and I was like, oh, I can relate to that.
She felt like the outsider as well in 90210. Within, take it as a grain of salt, like they're living in Beverly Hills, but
True.
still, like she was that person trying to fit in. With the popular kids in school. And I certainly felt that going in high school. I always felt like I was a little bit of an outsider and a fringe dweller. So there was something about her that was very relatable to many people in her role as Brenda in 90210.
Yeah, so very, very sad. Just awful, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too young?
Awful. Too young, absolutely too young. She started a podcast, if you're kind of curious, after her diagnosis, where she spoke really plainly about her career and the misconceptions she'd experienced, that she was difficult, that she was a bitch, all that sort of stuff throughout her career.
And now we just know she knew what she wanted and she said no to things that weren't appropriate.
Yeah. She was just bold and decisive, which, if you're another gender, is a different kettle of fish. But yeah, that podcast, I'll put that in the show notes if you're kind of curious to listen to it. She spoke to a lot of mates, including people like Sarah Michelle Gellar and stuff, about their experiences. So if you wanted to listen to that, I'll chuck that in the show notes. Oh, in happier news, you brought the gold this week, Myf.
Oh, yeah. I think we've safely established Balenciaga are essentially just taking the piss 24/7.
Trolls.
They've been trolling us for years. We've had all of it. Some of it you might see in our fashion parade that we have in Bang On Live. It's something else. It's quite special. They've come out a couple of months ago with the gaffer tape wrist bracelet, which was clear plastic that looked like the clear plastic tape, sticky tape that had the Balenciaga underneath. That was good for anyone who needs to look fashionable while they move house. That was great. And now they've come out with another one that's... People are up in arms about this one, and I get it, although I always found these things fucking disgusting. Get rid of them. They are rank. They are foul. They should not be elevated. Disgusting. Festival wristband. They've got a $3,000 version.
I'm sorry, £3,500.
£3,500. Oh, gosh, that makes it $6,000 for us. And
they're calling it a raver bracelet.
Raver bracelet, yeah. I mean, they sent it off to get made by an artisan somewhere.
Oh, it's got sterling silver, and it's made in pink, black, and blue polyester, metallized polyester, cotton, and sterling silver.
Ugh.
You'd want it to be for £3,500.
And it's made of grubby stuff that you can't wash off because it's material and it's stuck on your wrist.
Oh, God.
Foul.
Do you know anyone who's ever left a festival wristband on well past the time that the festival has ended?
I wouldn't be friends with them. I'd tell them to take it off. It's disgusting.
I know someone
Wash it.
who wore their Glastonbury bracelet for 3 years later.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I hope he's not listening.
Oh, he's not.
But even when you're at the...
Surely not if he is. He hates me.
Even when you're like
I
wearing
would say
it,
that's disgusting.
It's dipping into everything. When you have your shower, it's left wet on you. Like there's the first thing that you chop off when you come back from a festival. It's like
Sweat.
rip
I
it
can't
off.
wait to get it off. It's like I hate them so much. It could be that I don't like those sort of things on me. That's my thing, but...
I wonder who they're talking to with this piece of fashion, because it's like it did, there plenty of people did do this, and certainly it's a badge of pride. I remember when I used to go to South by Southwest years ago, I'd take photos of my wrist at the end of the week, which had like 7 or 8 different wristbands of all the different parties I'd been able to hustle into, because I was like, oh, look at it, what I got, look at what I achieved this week. There was a point of pride to it. There's a very youthful kind of obsession with showing your clout when it comes
Mementos
to... Mementos too.
I get that.
But it's like, who is someone who can afford £3,500 for a
Well, it's
place,
you know what it
is wearing this?
It's a retired CEO who's got cash to burn of a major multinational.
It's a Burning Man attendee. The fucking burners wearing these.
That's it. No one else can afford this.
The write-up that you sent this to me, which was in The Guardian, had one line which absolutely nails it. Brandishing an expensive wristband for a non-existent festival makes a very loud statement about what kind of person you are. And it really does.
Oh.
Anyway, that's on my Christmas wish list for the end of this year.
Don't get it for me. I don't want it.
I don't want Crocs this year. I want a Balenciaga Raver bracelet, please. Please. Speaking of Bang On Live, we have one coming up at the end of next week. We only have 3 more shows left. Can you believe it? We've been doing this tour since February. It's been friggin' amazing.
So much fun.
And
so much fun.
I don't know when we're going to do this again because it's a lot to go on tour around everything else that we do. Thank you to everyone who's come out. But if you want to come and see Bang On Live, get into these last shows.
Yeah, it's probably not going to come out to the regions in near time soon. So this will be your last chance.
Wyong is selling very fast. We're going to be in Wyong on the Sunny Coast next weekend, and the homework for that, if you missed it, is the Dallas Cowboys documentary on Netflix, America's Sweethearts. So if you want to play along, we're going to be talking about that at the show. We'll put that in the podcast as a bonus bang too, but if you want to be in the room and chat with us about that, then watch America's Sweethearts.
If you want to wildly disagree with us like they did at Anita's in Thirroul. Did you remember that when we talked about I Am? Someone in the audience, I love this. Why did you make us watch that? It's depressing.
It was like a town hall. Thirroul was up for it. You know what it was?
It was great.
It was Friday night crowd. The Friday night crowd, because they've had they're just like, okay, we've knocked off work. We're going to have a few and just keep going. And there was, I loved the energy.
We encouraged that. It was great. They were really into it and they really had strong views. And I love a firm view.
I love a firm view as well.
So I appreciate it. Even if I didn't agree, I appreciate it.
No, we love it when people disagree with us. So please do and come along to Bang On Live at the Art House in Wyong. Then we're going to be in Darwin on August the 20th. That is also selling really fast, like no jokes. Get your
part
tickets
of the festival,
ASAP.
so hurry up.
Yeah, Tuesday, August 20 in the top end. It's going to be amazing. And because I was in London last week, we had to reschedule our Cairns show in case you missed it. This is actually going to be our very last Bang On Live, Myf. It's our very final show of the tour. Come and party with us in Far North Queensland. Anybody in the southern states or just anywhere in Australia, where else would you want to be on Saturday, September 7 than goddamn Cairns? Like we're going to be wearing our Christopher and Pixie Skase finest.
Absolutely. I think we have to theme dress for Cairns.
I've got a beautiful pastel jumpsuit in mind.
It has to be pastel. And look, come sweat with us, basically. It's going to be sweaty. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be amazing.
It's going to be incredible. And maybe we'll just run from the theatre straight into the ocean as a big sort of nudie run at the end of Bang On Live.
No, crocodiles.
So Cairns, last Bang On Live, Saturday, September 7 is a rescheduled show. We'd love to see you if you're in Cairns or the greater area, Port Douglas, Mission Beach, Palm Cove. We would love to see you for our very final Bang On Live and fill that room with a lot of Bang On love. We're very, very excited about that.
Yeah.
Now, what are you banging on about this week?
I actually banged on about this briefly. I'd started watching it when we were in Thirroul in the live show, because we do that in the live show too. We just give a hot tip for something we've same as we do on the podcast, essentially. And I'd started watching the new series called Fake. You've probably heard about it. Oof.
Asher Ketty, David Wenham?
Yeah, Asher Ketty in the main role as a woman called Birdie who's, 40-ish, and she's been out of the dating game for about 5 years, she says, and she decides it's time to get on the apps and give it a go because people are looking at her like, what's wrong with you, which happens to women of a certain age. Why haven't you found a man? All that rubbish. I now believe that it's you're probably better off after watching this show not to have found a man, because the excuses made for this man that she meets who says he's an architect and a grazier and a farmer and all of the things, and she gets the red flags and the icks, but the excuses that she makes for him, but also, people like her mother who say, oh, look, everyone's got problems. Just if they've got good bones, work with that. And I'm like, oh, God, no, this is going badly. This is going badly.
Aim higher.
Yeah, exactly. Or just to be honest, you're better off alone. But it's based on a true story. This is what makes it worse. It's an actual story. These events happened, obviously. It's a fictionalised version of it, where this guy is essentially just a fantasist, a scam artist. He spends his entire time lying to her, and none of it is real. And she's with him for, it seems, about a year or two, and it's all very, very serious. He's met all of her friends, but everything is a lie.
Oh, my God.
And the reality is very, very sad, and it's horrible. It's a horrible watch. So if you're easily triggered or you've experienced something like this, and I'd say a lot of women have experienced this over time, or parts of this, it's a difficult watch if you've had anything close to this in your life, or been with perhaps maybe a narcissist or a chronic liar, or this person's a fantasist. Like, all of it was a fantasy essentially, but the time and effort that's put into creating this fantasy was just astounding. And Asha Ketty is brilliant. Her face is the face of every woman over the age of 45, captured on screen, writ large, and that is just anxious and not smiling. And and it's brilliant all the time. All the time. And David Wenham is just creepy AF, and it's really good. It's really good.
Okay, great. I've been hearing lots about this. I need to dive into fake. That's
But yeah, if you're easily triggered by this sort of subject matter, don't watch it.
Okay, that's a good warning.
What are you banging on about? I'm exhausted.
Well, funnily enough, so that's on Paramount Plus, and I'm actually banging on about something that is also on Paramount Plus, but I did watch on the flight over and flight back. It's a 10-episode series that's currently screening on Paramount Plus and Qantas in-flight entertainment, and it's called The Curse. This is the new series from Nathan Fielder, who, remember when we talked about The Rehearsal, that crazy show from Nathan Fielder last year? So it's that guy, and also Benny Safdie, who, with his brother, did Uncut Gems. So these are
Safdie's Muse.
The Safdie, the what?
Safdie's Muse. Do you remember when Julia Fox said...
I haven't seen Uncut Gems because I don't want to watch a stressful film.
Oh, no, when she was talking about being Safdie's Muse.
Oh, right.
And it went viral a couple of years ago. It was amazing.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
So Nathan Fielder deals in strangeness and the Safdies deal in stress, and that's kind of the cross of these two experiences
Sounds horrible. What are you doing watching that on a plane?
It's so good, Myf. Like, it's not as stressful as Uncut Gems, and it's not as strange as The Rehearsal, but it's basically, the idea is that it's a married couple, and here's the other kicker, Emma Stone stars in it, and she's friggin' amazing. Yeah. So Nathan Fielder plays Asha, Emma Stone plays Whitney, and they're a married couple who are trying to launch a reality TV show, which is kind of like a sort of like a Queer Eye type series where they do good deeds for people in a little town called Espanola in New Mexico. A very large Native American population, and they're quite wealthy, and they're bringing in these sort of eco-home, sustainable homes, and they're being total white saviours and absolute wankers and trying to gentrify the area and boost the property prices. And seemingly good deeds, but basically buying up all these cheap properties at like town hall auctions, and then flipping them into eco homes, and then boosting the basically the price, the local price for houses, putting in things like very whitewashed minimalist coffee shops, denim stores, all this kind of shit. The sort of stuff that makes you cringe, the sort of stuff that you've seen and probably partaken in your own life. Very difficult viewing in many ways. It is white saviours on crack, but it is so funny, and the writing and the execution is so sharp and so spot on. But the kicker is that it just gets stranger and stranger because there's this idea of a curse that runs throughout it, and it gets more and more strange to the point where, like, subtly strange, but then the last episode, something so nonsensical happens. It is like no other season finale I have ever seen.
Okay, I'm
It
sold.
is wild.
Sold to the woman at the front.
It's so wild. So I highly recommend it because I just hadn't I'd missed it. It came out at the end of last year. Obviously, the whole series is out. It's 10 episodes. But if you, like me, had missed it when it first came out, just watch it if you can. It's on Paramount Plus or on a long flight if you've got access. It's called The Curse, and I just thought it was just bizarre and brilliant. And yeah, Emma Stone, she's so good.
She's very good.
She's so good. Babes, that's a big bang. We had a big bang this week. This is what happens when we have a week off.
I know, there's a lot.
But I enjoyed it.
There was a lot we didn't cover today too that we could have.
Yeah, well, we'll always have next week, won't we?
There's always next week.
And we'll always have Wild.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So I'll see you for 2 bangs next week. See you next week and then see you on the weekend on the sunny coast.
Double bang.
Dirty mole.
Bang. 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 Bang on.